Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Vic again, and you are back with a Bitcoin in 30 minutes episode. In this episode, I'd like to talk about Bitcoin as a savings technology. So, what do I mean by that? Well, Bitcoin as a savings technology. Well, first of all, let me just kind of go over what we have right now as a savings technology, the US dollar. For most of us in so-called advanced economies, we have the US dollar or cash to attempt to save money in, and it's just not working. I think it used to work, but it doesn't work anymore. I mean, there's just no way that any person who is under 40 is going to be able to save for the future. This idea that you can kind of take your labor and investments or return on investments and then save that for a rainy day, or save that for some sort of future unexpected expense, or save it for a trip or a vacation or something like that. The idea of savings is so far-fetched for most Americans, I think, that the idea altogether has just been completely obliterated. Not totally, but almost completely obliterated. Most folks, buy on credit. They will buy their large purchase based on they'll buy their large purchase based on installment payments. You name it. I mean, it's a foreign idea. This idea that we would save 10, 15, $20,000 and be able to use that for a rainy day. Now, let's say you do. Let's say you're either one of the lucky ones or disciplined ones, or one of the ones who is able to earn enough income. Maybe you have a very profitable and lucrative business, and you are able to save. Well, first of all, congratulations. That's wonderful. I'm happy for you. Second of all, what happens to the $100,000 that you have in your checking account once it's saved? Well, it sits there, right? And there's some who say, well, the bank will speculate on it, they'll loan it out. There's others who say, no, they don't need to do that. There's a zero reserve asset. That's kind of beyond the scope of this audio episode here. What I just want to say is, like, the debasement of the cash that you have in your checking account is inevitable. So the $100,000 that you have in your checking account will now, today, buy, I don't know, a nice luxury car, maybe a Ford or a Ram heavy duty pickup. I think they're going for like $70,000 now, almost $80,000. The $100,000 will probably buy you maybe a nice car or a nice house down payment. But the point I'm trying to make is, like, the purchasing power of your $100,000 is basically guaranteed to go down. I remember back when I was, I don't know, in my early 20s, $100,000 was probably like, I don't know, $400,000 today. And the debasement and the loss of purchasing power is self-evident. And so Bitcoin as a savings technology is fundamentally, structurally, and in principle, the exact opposite. Because unlike cash, Bitcoin, as we went over in the first episode, is capped at 21 million. So each year there's only a certain finite amount of issuances. And so in that way, once you have Bitcoin, let's say you have, one Bitcoin in your wallet today, the purchasing power of that Bitcoin, as it was, I don't know, 4 years ago, was less. The purchase, it probably was maybe $2,000 of purchasing power for one Bitcoin about 4 years ago, 2017, $2,000 or $3,000, I think it was. I think it was $3,000 actually in 2018 or 2017. No. It was $20,000 in 2018, and then 2019 it kind of dipped hardcore to like $5,000, something like that. Today, in 2023, in October, that purchasing power for one Bitcoin is 30 grand. So I love the little meme that you can find quickly online. It's basically a shopping cart full of groceries, and it's like what $20 would buy you at the 1950s. And then, it says what $20 will buy you in 2023, and there's like a couple items in the groceries cart. And then on the bottom of the meme, it's a grocery cart full of a Bitcoin, and it's like what one Bitcoin will buy you in 1950, which is, well, hypothetically, 2008 is when it was created, but it's not very much, right? And then like in 2023, there's like multiple grocery carts in terms of what Bitcoin can buy you. And so there's a couple things that are going on here. The point is that the Bitcoin network is growing. We are now at institutional adoption of Bitcoin ETF, in my personal opinion, in terms of the financialization of Bitcoin and the incorporation of it into the larger financial system is imminent. It is inevitable, and it is imminent. It's imminent in the short term, not in the long term, like probably within the next 6 months. And it's October 2023. That shows me that Bitcoin, holding a Bitcoin and being able to save and accumulate more Bitcoin in a fixed world where Bitcoin is a constant, is doing very much service for the notion of saving for a rainy day or saving for the future. In fact, I would say it's probably compounding for the future. It's almost like having a promissory note that's owed to you with interest and compounded interest. I don't think it's as powerful as compounding, but in this phase it could be, because it's still growing and it could grow exponentially. So in that way, it could beat compounding interest. But in any event, Bitcoin as a savings technology in that regard, because of the hard cap and the debasement of cash going forward, and it makes no difference whether the cash is digital cash or whether it's cash paper dollars. The monetary policy behind the cash and the debt and the constant debt issuances that back the cash basically is not going away. It is kind of a one-trick pony in that regard. So in any event, I've been saying store value here and there, and I wanted to kind of touch on what value is. Like I keep saying in these audio podcasts, I'm not an economist. I don't have a business major. I do have a law degree, and I do have some education, and I have a master's degree, and I have a political science degree, and things like that. So, but I've been in the space since 2018, and I've learned a little bit about, in terms of what I think value is, and I'll tell you what I think value is not. Value is not what just some dude on TV says that it is. If you think value is that, then you're probably going to be in for some rude awakenings in the future. Store value is many different things. Where does Bitcoin get its value? I think is kind of part and parcel of this question and answer. And I think ultimately it gets its value from many different things: supply, demand, capital investment, network growth. Let's see what else. Institutionalization at this point. One of the things that folks bring up a lot when it comes to Bitcoin and digital money, and cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin, is what about all the other tokens? What about Ethereum and Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash and all of that? Why would I buy Bitcoin if I could just have the next best thing? And that's kind of missing the point, because the next best thing is not Bitcoin. The next best thing is just some other mock copycat coin that doesn't have the same fundamentals as far as the network capacity, the miner participation, the global security that the Bitcoin network has. And so they're just total, they're like, they're like real denim versus fake denim, or real leather versus fake leather. You have something that's kind of a mock-up of Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, and it's just kind of leveraging the spirit of the moment to kind of capitalize on folks' misbeliefs and misunderstandings of Bitcoin. And so what ends up happening is you have folks who say, oh, well, I have Ethereum. Ethereum is the Bitcoin killer. And then the folks, who have Solana, which is another cryptocurrency, they say, oh, well, I have Solana, and that's the Ethereum killer. And so what ends up happening is you have a waterfall effect. I call it the waterfall effect. This idea that, you have a technology and you want folks to buy it, kind of like an iPhone, if you will. And the technology is good and it works and it's faster. So for example, Ethereum is a faster blockchain than Bitcoin. But what ends up happening is that it doesn't have the other fundamentals that Bitcoin has. It doesn't have a max supply of 21 million. In fact, it has an agreement mechanism that is different now than it was when it originated. And so the evolution of Ethereum allows it to be much more centralized and controlled by humans than Bitcoin. Now, obviously, Bitcoin ultimately is also controlled by humans who have the 51% consensus, but unlike some of the other coins, there is no, like for example, Ethereum, there's no 51% consensus or agreement that's needed. It's just a group of folks who are just kind of playing with, their own personal technology and then parroting it as a superior cryptocurrency than Bitcoin, when in fact it really isn't. It can do more things, right? It's more versatile. There's no doubt about that. But that doesn't mean it's a better money. And so what I mean by that is money, you can look in the textbook of what the traditional, definition of money is. Unit of account, store of value, medium of exchange. I think there's one more, I can't think of it right now. And you can do all of that. But the point I'm trying to make is like, there's one thing to have like a cryptocurrency that is money, which is Bitcoin, and another cryptocurrency or cryptocurrencies on the open market that are not money, they're just tokens. They're just digital tokens that work on a blockchain. In fact, Ethereum is so much not money that I think sometimes folks analogize it to like digital oil, kind of like you need Ethereum to participate and engage and experiment on the Ethereum network, on the blockchain network, to do initial coin offerings or, create a non-fungible token or do some other experimental endeavor on the Ethereum blockchain. But none of that is money. So when I say none of it is money, I mean it doesn't come as close to the definition of money. And moreover, none of it actually has the origin story that Bitcoin has, which the anonymous creator Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin, and as such, there's no corporation or personal financial interests from the origin of the creators of Bitcoin. Now, there are some early adopters who are probably going to get really, really rich when Bitcoin becomes what it's supposed to become, but that doesn't mean they're the origins in terms of it's a holding company that 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 is going to profit off of the creation and the innovation of Bitcoin. So in that respect, the Bitcoin, I like what Michael Saylor, which he's a Bitcoin influencer in this space, has said about Bitcoin. He says Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. There is no second best, and I very much agree with him because you can't. Bitcoin is not an iPhone. It's not a technology that purports to be readily developed to have a quick quarterly improvement the way an iPhone would. It's not competing in a market space where other forms of digital money are competing against it. There are other tokens. So, for example, like XRP token, I think US dollar coin is another one. But each one of those tokens or coins cannot occupy the same space as Bitcoin. Otherwise, it would be Bitcoin. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you have, so for example, Bitcoin Cash, which was a hard fork from the original Bitcoin, it tried to become a better version of Bitcoin, but the majority of folks did not actually adhere or use Bitcoin Cash and put Bitcoin Cash out as though it was Bitcoin. And so, as such, you really just had Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. And it really irked some people off, the creators of Bitcoin Cash, because they said, okay, well, no, Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin, or Satoshi's Vision Coin is the real Bitcoin. And so you have a lot of folks who are out there on different blockchains saying, okay, this is a better Bitcoin. But it's not. It's just some other derivative of the original Bitcoin. And so only Bitcoin can occupy Bitcoin space on the Bitcoin blockchain. And when there's an agreement that a different form of coin will, or not a different form of coin, when there's an agreement between the miners that Bitcoin ought to be improved. So, for example, like a software upgrade, I think the last one was Taproot. It was called Taproot, and they all agree to it. Then that's the new Bitcoin. Okay, so when they all agree to the same thing, that becomes the new Bitcoin. Okay, so that's what I mean by Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. I mean, it's not an iPhone. It's not something that you can easily change, and it's not supposed to be easily changeable.
Okay, so just to sum up, what we've discussed so far with respect to Bitcoin as a savings technology, since we're kind of running short on time at this point, we talked about the hard cap in perpetuity, which is the 21 million Bitcoins, and the protocol and the software that produces a certain amount of Bitcoin per year. We talked about store of value over time and what value means, in my opinion, and how Bitcoin even has value at all, which is the supply and demand, the network growth, the institutionalization by sovereign entities and banks and things like that. We talked about the notion of Bitcoin as a savings technology in the sense of how Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. Um, and we talked a little bit about the waterfall effect, which is, that Bitcoin is not an iPhone. Only Bitcoin occupies its space as Bitcoin. While there are other digital tokens that exist, those tokens do not have the same fundamental principles or monetary policy, i.e., the 21 million, or architecture that Bitcoin has. Moreover, Bitcoin is the first mover advantage and it's got this, global. It's got the global security network in mining that makes it valuable and more powerful than all the other tokens that can be changed at the whim of their creators. Um, Given that we don't have very much time left, we have probably about 9, 10 minutes left. I want to talk a little bit about the national currency strength. If you've been paying attention for the last since 2008, which was when I was in law school, you'll know that something happened and all the banks were bailed out and Bitcoin was created at that time. A lot of the reckless lending and bets that were made by mortgage-backed securities and things like that basically went belly up, and nobody was prosecuted, all that stuff. I bring this up because um, the whole idea, well, I wouldn't say the whole idea, but a large part of the strength of any nation's currency, whether it's the yuan or the US dollar or the euro or the pound, um, is a multi-factor analysis. And what I mean by that is it's not necessarily just one thing that makes the currency strong. With respect to the U.S. dollar, I think there are many things that make it strong, and there are many things that I think will strengthen it from here into the future. Some examples I think are um, the legal architecture, checks and balances of the American government, uh, the university systems in America, the competitiveness of them, innovation, technology, go into making the U.S. dollar something to be desired both nationally and also globally. That said, it is very apparent at this point that having one U.S. dollar is not what it used to be. And with the servicing of the debt and the advent of other new technologies coming out online, my bet into the future is that the US dollar will continue to debase rapidly. That doesn't mean it will become zero. It just means that even if interest rates by the Federal Reserve Bank are raised even to 12%, that higher interest rate is not going to cause um, that interest rate increase will not result in a meaningful or significant stopping or mitigation to the debasement of your currency. In other words, the higher interest rates will basically be a band-aid on a ship that is way too heavy to hold all the debt that it is carrying, and it will continue to sink, and more money printing will continue to be necessary, causing a ripple effect, a compounding snowball effect into the debasement of the U.S. dollar. We can see this right now on the global scene with respect to the other weaker currencies around the world, particularly the Turkish lira and the pound sterling, and the weakness of those currencies is causing rapid rises in prices, and so those other countries simply do not have the global presence that the United States has. And so as a result, the United States dollar is, in my opinion, kind of the best of a basket of other terrible currencies. And the United States dollar, and this has nothing to do with my own personal patriotism and love for my country, but the United States dollar is what it is, and it will continue, in my opinion, to debase. Now, the purchasing power of Bitcoin, on the other hand, will continue to increase in the sense that because it is a constant, It is a constant 21 million cap, and 6.25 per 10 minutes, and 3.125 in 2024 per 10 minutes. Um, the the amount of currency that Bitcoin represents, specifically the amount of US dollars that Bitcoin represents, will continue to um, inflate. So, in other words, as more currency is pushed into the global economy, US dollars specifically, Bitcoin will start to, and already has, continue to balloon and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I think this is a good thing because having one Bitcoin saved in your back pocket in 2023 is about $35,000. But in 2025, when that you know avalanche of new cash comes on the market, it'll probably be quadruple that. It'll probably be over $120,000 per Bitcoin. And so it's not too late to start saving your current value and your future value in a technology that represents inherent savings, that contains and represents an inherent savings protocol, and that protocol is the 21 million cap. So I think that's largely what I wanted to say about Bitcoin as a savings technology, and as and for the rest of this video. We have a couple of minutes left. I do want to, at this time, this is a topic that really warrants its own episode, but the advent of ChatGPT and AI technologies is very concerning, in my opinion, because it will kill jobs. Yeah, you'll hear a lot of things about, okay, well, ChatGPT will create jobs as well, but I don't think that it will create as many jobs as it will kill. It is very smart. It can solve problems. It can troubleshoot. It can write. It can read. This is a very powerful technology. It's almost kind of like Google on steroids when Google first came out. Why does that have anything to do with Bitcoin as a savings technology? Well, what's going to happen is, in my opinion, my bet into probably in the next couple of years, probably after the next year's election, you will see what they call universal basic income. Universal basic income will literally just be a check that the government gives to people for just living. In other words, this old legacy notion that in order to get money, you must earn money, you must labor for money, you must put intellectual capital to get money. I think that is going to go away for a minimum amount of income, and that will have massive implications for Bitcoin as a savings technology. So if I labored, $1,000 worth of labor and intellectual capital, but my neighbor didn't labor for that same $1,000, guess how much money I want now for my actual labor and intellectual capital? Well, I want double, right? Or you want at least 50% more, because the other person down the road didn't do shit for their income. And as a result of AI, we kind of have to make sure everyone has a minimum amount of income. Otherwise, people will be starving and living in the street worse than what we have today in 2023. So, in other words, that will accelerate the debasement of cash in the modern economy, and as a result of the acceleration of debasement, that will also result in the rushing of Bitcoin as a savings technology. Folks who want to save their wealth and who don't want to give their wealth away will rush into Bitcoin as a savings of wealth and a savings technology because it can't be given away, and AI can't destroy it as a medium of exchange. Anyway, so those are my thoughts on Bitcoin as a savings technology. I hope you enjoyed this. I went a little bit over on this one. But give me a like if you like it, share it with your friends. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Be blessed.